Yep, all looks good. So, thanks everyone for joining today. Want to introduce you to Mary Alice Monroe. Thanks so much for joining us, Mary Alice. Based in Charleston, South Carolina, Mary Alice Monroe is the New York Times best-selling author of 27 books, so that's pretty impressive, including her forthcoming novel, The Summer of Lost and Found, which releases in May. Richly layered and rooted to a place, her low country set novels deftly explore the intersections and parallels between Mother Nature and human nature, hooking readers emotionally while gently encouraging them to take a harder look at the environment and our impact on it. Finding her true calling in environmental fiction and as a passionate conservative, Monroe serves on the board of the Leatherback Trust and South Carolina Aquarium, Friends of Coastal Carolina, and is a certified volunteer with the Island Turtle team. She is also an honorary board of the Pat Connery Literary Centre, and Monroe has won numerous awards, including the prestigious Southern Prize for Fiction, several Reader's Choice Awards, and is a member of the South Carolina Academy of Authors. Mary Alice Monroe is the co-creator, co-host of the new literary sensation Friends and Fiction, which is a weekly web show and podcast. And I have to say, that's how I first became aware of you, through Friends and Fiction, and I was really, really impressed with your group, and it's probably an inspiration for me for my group. So,
well, thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. And
thank you.
And I'd never read any of your books before, but I have just recently read The Summer Girls, which is the first in one of your series, and really, really loved it. And love the relationships and everything in it. So thanks so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. You chose a good one. So that's the first of a series. And I have written two series. This one with Summer Girls, Summer Wind, Summer's End, about three sisters and a grandmother. I love that relationship. And I always set my books against a species, and I have worked with dolphins for so many years.
Yeah, I love
which is when I go to Australia, because y'all have dolphins and sharks and all this great marine life. I'm dying to get there. And this book, I worked with dolphins for 6 years with this book. I still do, but to write this one. And the other series, but this series was written so that you would read one after the other in a row. But the other series that I wrote is the Beach House series, which is probably the most famous. That series was written, each book is an individual book.
Okay.
And it'll be 20 years I've been writing that series. Next year. I mean, that's a long time.
That is a long time.
And I have readers who followed the books every year, and I have readers who just like binged and caught up. But you don't have to read that series in order.
Okay, that's good to know.
I write each book, so like this one, you can see the poster a little bit back there, The Summer of Lost and Found. That's number 7. And so I don't do them every year. I do it every couple of years when I have something to say. And it's set against sea turtles. That's the primary species I'm working. But it's a family. It's a family saga. And I love family sagas. And in this one, though, if you pick up number 7 or you pick up number 3 or number 1, you can read it as a standalone novel. But it's okay if you say, I want to go back and read them all. That's what we hope.
No, that's great. And do you live close to the beach?
I live on the beach.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Nice.
And I am a turtle lady. That means that's an affectionate term here. I, for 20 years, have been on the team that monitors the nests. So I decide if we move the nests or not.
Okay.
And it's from May till October here in South Carolina. And we monitor these. It's not like Florida where there's a gazillion turtles. We only get 60 to 80 nests a year. So we're little midwives for every nest.
And are they quite endangered? Is that why you need to help them, or?
Yes, and especially now, I think worldwide with light disorientation, the sea turtles, when they emerge, the hatchlings, in nature follow the brightest light, and that would be the ocean and stars over the water. But now with electricity, nature can't compete with the street lamps and the houses. So even though we have zoning asking people to turn off the lights, just the ambient light from cities is so strong that the hatchlings, they start, we watch them go down. They're so cute, 3 inches, turn around and go back towards the street. So we have to watch them
because they get easily confused.
But you have a lot of turtles in Australia too.
Yeah, there and yeah.
Like I said, I gotta go. You guys have to invite me to book. I'm gonna come in person.
You have to.
I think we'll get the Fan 5 from Friends in Fiction.
Yeah, sounds
to do
great.
a tour of Australia.
Sounds like a great idea. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people on here interested.
We would love it.
And we've got a few people watching already. We've got Patricia, who says she's in Queensland, and
Queensland.
Peggy, who said she's in Davidson, North Carolina.
Hi, everybody. You gotta write your bookstore. Say, bring her in. And my publisher has to send me.
Because you were saying to me you're not really in bookstores in Australia, are you?
Not really. It's interesting. It's really hard. I used to be, and it's hard now to get books, the English language distribution. It's just very difficult, and I don't understand. I know my audience is there. I have a big audience in Australia, and I think we're working on it.
And especially with the beach themes, and because the beaches here are wonderful.
I know you are the beach, right, in Australia, and I have surfing in my books. You know, in the Summer Girls, she's a surfer. My daughter goes to Australia and has competed. She is a surfer and a kite surfer.
Okay.
You know, the wind.
Yeah, and it mentions kite surfing in the Summer Girls.
Yeah, she was number 5 in the world at one point.
Wow.
And so this is serious. So my family. And we dive, and we're all marine biologists. So Australia is a mecca.
You definitely have to visit the Great Barrier Reef.
Oh my gosh, it's on my wish list. It's, what do you call it? When you want before you die, you want to get there.
And just so the others know, I bought my book from Book Depository, so it's easy to buy your books online, and probably Amazon as well. I think we should be able to buy.
Will get them for you. And it's just that, I just like to support independent bookstores too, and I just got to get over there, so we will.
Yeah.
But thank you for finding my books. From my heart.
Could you tell us a little bit about how you became a writer, and is it something you always thought you wanted to do?
I did. I have found I've had a long career, and over the years I've met so many different authors, and there are some who say, I've always known I wanted to be an author since I was a little girl, and there's some who say, gee, like Lila Meacham, I think, wrote her first book, Roses, I think it was called, and when she was 60. And look at Delia Owens, Where the Crawdads Sing. Now, I know that's in Australia. I think it's the number 1 book around the world. She's a friend of mine, actually.
Okay.
We both love nature, so how could we not be friends? But that's her first novel. She wrote nonfiction, but Where the Crawdads Sing was her first novel. So to answer your question, I don't think it's better or worse to have when you start, as long as when you start, you're in it and your heart's in it. And I was always a storyteller. I don't remember a time in my life that I didn't tell stories. I come from 10 children in my family, and I'm one of the eldest. So, when you put your baby brother or sister to bed, you make up a story. You sing a song. And we had plays, and ever since I was young, I just wrote stories. And my 3rd grade teacher said, Mary Alice, did you ever think you wanted to be a writer when you grew up? And I was shocked. I didn't know that was a job. So I was so thrilled because she could name for me what I wanted to be. I didn't know that was something I could grow up to be. And I think teachers, I was a former teacher as well before I wrote. I think teachers are so important in a child's life. And I want to thank
Very
all the
true,
teachers
yeah.
out there because it changed my life.
Yeah,
And
no.
that's my canary. So you're not hearing things out there. I have canaries.
It's not your speaker, your screeching.
They won't be quiet. They hear the laughter and they start singing.
And when, like you said, you've always thought you would be a writer and wrote a lot yourself. How did you first get published, and was it hard for you or easy the first time?
For me, it was embarrassingly easy, but I'll tell you how it happened. You know, I wrote nonfiction for a while. I was shy about showing my work. When you read the series, I hope you read The Summer Girls, The Summer Wind, and The Summer's End, and it's each sister is focused on. And the reason I say that is Heather is one of the sisters. And Heather, it is Heather, isn't it?
I didn't think there was a.
No, it's not Heather.
No, I didn't think there was a Heather.
Harper, yes.
Yeah.
I get them a little confused. Harper
Yep.
is a writer. In the third book in the series, you remember a scene. There's a scene where her mother doesn't believe that she wrote as a child what she had written. She thought she had plagiarized it. And that actually happened with my father, and he was upset with me, and he thought that I had stolen the idea of Willie the Wishful Whale was my first book. And I stapled it, and I had drawings and illustrations, and it hurt my feelings. And I was so shy that I didn't show anyone my work for quite a while. But when I was much older, I was teaching, and I was put to bed for a pregnancy. And I was put to bed for a couple months, and that's a very humbling experience for anyone who's had that happen to them. So my husband's a psychiatrist, and he took the TV out of my bedroom. I could have killed him. I could be in bed for 4 months with no TV. What are you doing? And he gave me a yellow legal pad and a pen, and he said, Mary Alice, for as long as I've known you, you've wanted to write a full novel. Now's your chance. Because I was working, you're a teacher, you have kids. Who has time? So I wrote my first novel, the sketch of it, and then I joined a writer's group. Now here's the key, volunteering. When I was a member of the writer's group, I volunteered to help with a retreat, a writer's retreat. And agents and editors came. And one of my jobs was to drive agents back to the airport from Washington, D.C. to the airport. And I did. And while I was in the car, this nice agent, because, you know, what else is she going to say? She says, well, what's your book about? And I told her, and she said, well, why don't you send it? And that, ladies and gents, is the only thing an agent has to say. They don't have to read your book or don't tell them about it. You just have to have them say, send it. Because it's the words that are going to sell your book, nothing you say in a conversation. So she looked at it and she signed me and she sold it. So I have to say, it for me, it went easily. But there's always rejection in the selling. You know, she sold the book, but I was rejected from editors. You know, I paid my dues, but I was lucky to get published. It's tough. It's tough. And my heart goes out to all writers out there, because being published does not mean you're a writer. You're a writer if you write. So when you're not published and you're trying to get published, or you're just writing for yourself, you are a writer if you write.
And what was your first book that you had published?
It was called The Long Road Home. Okay. Or my children call it The Long Road to Publication.
And that
because I did want to be a writer. I was almost 40. I was in my late 30s.
Yeah.
So from 8 years old to almost 40, took a while.
And that was a standalone?
That was a standalone published by Harper, and it takes place in Vermont. And they say, write what you know. And it was our sheep. We have a big sheep farm, my husband's family.
Okay.
And of course, it had animals in it. And it was a sheep farm. It's a good story. It was written in the 80s. So it was a little bit more, bank scandals and is a love story. It's a good book, but it was my very first one. And here's a funny story. I remember it came out, and 6 months later, I was at a big book festival in New York. And my very first book, and they give away books, to try and attract people, booksellers. So there's a long line of booksellers, and everyone's like, whoa, what's going on? She's catching on. I found out about that, I didn't know it, but Danielle Steele had written a book called The Long Road Home. They all thought I was Danielle Steele. They ran out of books.
Oh, that's a good story. Yeah.
So what do you think about that, Danielle Steele?
Could you tell us a bit more about the characters and events in your book? Are they based on people you know or things that you've experienced or heard of yourself?
Generally, in all my books are, no writer writes in a vacuum. And all my books are, I choose a species first. That's how I write. And so, for example, with the Summer Girls, the one you read, it was dolphins. And it all started actually with the beach house, though. It's the same process. I choose the species and I go to work. I volunteer. It goes back to volunteering. I do an academic research. I talk to experts in the field and I make sure there's enough there for a novel. Then I dive in. I roll up my sleeves and I work with the animals for 6 months. Well, with turtles, 20 years. But I always say the story comes to me from the animals. I write themes for the book set against what I learned about the species. I write dialogue, characterizations that are influenced by the people.
What about the table?
In the real world when I work
table.
with them. So it's authentic. The novels are always about the people.
The light and the table.
Relationships, the mother, son, husband, wife, the lovers. But if you use that delicate backdrop to create your story world, it's authentic and it's real. My readers can feel it. They know I know it. Yeah, it's not faked. Yeah. And I think because of that, because you see the world through the eyes of my characters, you feel my passion. And I think that's why readers say, oh my gosh, I loved the story, the mother-daughter, I cried. But I learned a lot about turtles too. And it's like, I call it a painless bonus. It's a bonus because my job is a novelist. But I do love to know that my readers are feeling part of the story world. The hardest book I ever wrote, though, is the one that comes out in May, and that's The Summer of Lost and Found. And I was sheltering in place like everybody else. And I couldn't go off, and I was going to write about fireflies, actually. And I couldn't research. And I was sort of stymied, and I was up in the mountains where I have a mountain house. And that's where I sheltered in place. Just the beach was getting crowded because people wanted to come out. So I sort of sequestered away in a mountain house. And I realized that what was happening to me was happening to everybody. The sense of delays and frustrations and fears and what 2020 was. And I wasn't interested in the disease, but I was really curious about how families were affected, mothers and children, and the older people were affected by health, while the younger people, their lives were stopped. They couldn't date, they couldn't go out and meet friends. So everyone had their different relationships. Everyone had their different fears. And the reason it was hard to write was I wrote it in real time. And I was experiencing what I wanted to write about and had to gain perspective. So what I wanted to say in April was not what I wanted to say in June or November. And I was pulling my hair out and crying and what is it I want to say? Because I was trying to figure it out. And I have to say, because every novel I write is something I want to say. And I realized that a kind of an epiphany at the end, that there is no hindsight. in 2020.
Mm.
You know, that there are no plans that can be held tight. Even now with book tour, as I begin tour for the book, everyone's ready to pivot. Is it going to be a virtual event or is it going to be live? Love, family relationships, jobs, we're all pivoting. But there are some really great moments. People stayed home with their kids more. People learned new habits. There were new memories forged, new relationships. And I wrote about the smiles. I wrote about the good things. And I really do feel that for all the, looking back, for all the ups and downs, I learned a lot about myself, and my characters did too. Both Kara, who's the older woman, and Linnea, the younger woman. And it was sensitive, but I think pretty spot on.
So does it actually refers to being like the time with COVID in your book?
It was. It's 2020 on the beach, just the summer. From spring, it starts in April and ends in September.
Okay.
But in that period of time, you had a surfing group that they formed this pod and a love triangle. And so there's a love story. In fact, a young man is from Surfers International, and he talks about bumping into a shark while surfing Australia, as a matter of fact. And that's my daughter's story. And there's a woman who has Alzheimer's, and everyone's worried about her health. And everyone's forming friendships, and mothers are watching their children. It's a very close group. But it's what happened. And I think everyone will enjoy it. I really do. It's not about the disease.
Sounds like it might
No one wants to read about disease.
No, that's right. Sounds like one I'll need to read. And it's a standalone as well, that one?
Yes, it's number 7 in the series, but it's the next generation.
Okay. Yeah.
So I call it The Beach House, The Next Generation, because it really introduces the young ones. The ones who are 8 years old in the first one are 21, 23 now. So you have a lot of young love, a lot of sort of like the summer girls. It's like the young people, but there's grandmother over watching. I always like to have the older generation giving good advice to the young.
Yeah. No, I really like that in the Summer Girls as well. Belinda's wondering if you have a special place where you like to write.
I'm in it right now, Belinda. This is my office. And I always am amazed when I hear, like, J.K. Rowling used to go to coffee shops. It's like, what? I would be so distracted because I'd be people watching. You know, I'd like to see who came in for the coffee. I'd imagine what their lives were like. I love to create characterizations from people I see in public. So that's my fetching mode, go and hunt for the character. But when I actually write, I'm right in this room with my canaries. And there are 4 dogs sitting on the carpet over there.
Nice.
I just pray the doorbell doesn't ring, because you know what happens when the doorbell rings.
I've got 3 dogs, so I know what that's like. Yeah. So,
Why only have 1 when you can have 3 or 4?
Yeah, exactly. I find a lot of book lovers are also dog lovers.
Yeah, you know, love me, love my dogs. I say about 2:00 in the afternoon, because I get up very early at dawn to write. And I say, nap time, and they all know what that means. They all run to the bed.
Nice. Peggy, who's watching, she wonders if your new book will be available at the Hammock Shop on Pawleys Island.
Oh my goodness! I don't know if it'll be in the Hammock Shop. It'll be at the Litchfield bookstore, and I'm coming to Pawleys, and I will have a one of the very first in-person book events through Litchfield Books. So definitely I will. Also, I have a middle grade book. Where's the cover? Not a poster, because I don't have any books.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that a cute cover?
Yeah.
Y'all see the
beautiful.
on the cover?
Yeah, beautiful.
That's the cover. And it's called The Islander. I hope it's not backward. And this is coming out June 15th, and it's my very first middle grade book. And again, I'm trying to do with kids that I have done with adults, which was create a magical, wonderful world. It's on an island, Deweese, which is remote,
Okay.
and you can only reach it by ferry. And there are no cars, no
wow.
stores,
Mm.
no restaurants, and no Wi-Fi for the kids. So they think it's the worst summer ever, these 3 kids. And they go it's sort of like Huck Finn life. You know, they go out and explore and see the alligators and the wild birds, and they create journals, and they create friendships that they might not have had. And there's a really beautiful grandson relationship. She's a little depressed at the beginning of the book. She's been alone. And he's sort of like Heidi, which I always loved as a child.
Yeah, I loved Heidi, yeah.
Didn't you? I even put the big round window in it. I had to. And Jake helps Honey, who's the grandmother, back to life a little bit.
Oh, okay.
It's a beautiful story.
Yeah. And so middle grade, that's probably not what sort of age group is that for the people?
8 to 12.
Okay.
8 to 12. But you know, adults read it too. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, sounds like it would be a beautiful story.
Thank you.
Could you tell us a little bit about what you like reading yourself, and maybe if there's anything you might have been reading lately you want to recommend to us?
Oh my goodness. Well, as you mentioned, I am on the show Friends in Fiction, and I hope y'all join. It's free, and we've been wildly successful, and no one's more surprised than us. We've been working very hard to invite wonderfully diverse authors, and I think, Jackie, you can say we've had a pretty wide group.
Yeah, you have.
So I rarely read for pleasure anymore. I read so many books because of author interviews, and I am hosting April 28th a favorite author of mine, Chris Bajalian. I don't know how to pronounce it, but here's the book cover. Hour of the Witch by Chris Bajalian. And he wrote The Flight Attendant, which I think is a TV series now. He wrote Midwives. He's very, very popular. And it's the story, it takes place in the 1600s. And it's about a woman who's accused in the witch trials of being a witch. But is she? It's really good. And every book that I've read, we interviewed Lisa Scottolini just last night, and her book Eternal is a fabulous book about World War II fascism under Mussolini in Rome. And you know what's interesting was a wonderful book, but what was interesting was I heard about, we have a lot of World War II books. We had Kate Quinn with the Rose Code, the Code Breakers. She's fabulous, and we've had a lot of World War II books, but I never really read one about Italy. So this was the first one, and we've had we were laughing so hard with Lisa Scottolini. You should get Lisa Scottolini.
Yeah,
she makes you laugh. She's just everywhere. Oh, another one was with Ellen Hildebrand. She writes a lot of very wonderful books are great.
Too. Yeah.
And she and I and Patty Callahan Henry, who is on Friends in Fiction, who currently writes historicals, and Adriana Trigiani, we got together because our friend Dorothy Benton Frank, who also wrote about the same area I do, passed away 2 years ago. And she was a good friend, and I'm sure a lot of you have read her books. And we wrote short stories, all centered around a beach theme. And it's called Reunion Beach. It got a starred review. It's on everyone's list. It's a really nice collection of short stories. So if y'all are interested in that, it's coming out April 27th, which I guess is this month.
So, and could you tell us a little bit more about Friends in Fiction? Like, how long ago did it start, and how did it actually start?
Well, it's actually almost a year old. We are celebrating our first year birthday in 2 weeks, and we're going to have cake and streamers, and I hope y'all come and join for free. Come on, join us. But it all started back when I started the Summer of Lost and Found, it was, we were all getting ready for a book tour, and everything was shut down. You know, what was my book? I had On Ocean Boulevard.
Okay.
I have a copy. It came out last May, and all of our books, Mary Kay Andrews, Patty Callan, Henry, Kristen Harmel, and Christy Woodson Harvey, all our tours were canceled. Nobody knew what was happening.
And were you friends, or you were already friends, the group of you?
I was friends with Patty and Mary Kay.
Yeah.
And then I knew Christy and Kristen because we all published by the same publisher. And we were just talking on emails, and Mary Kay said, let's all get a rosé wine and talk on it. So we didn't know it's Zoom. We just sort of figured out Zoom. And we started talking about what are we going to do in book tours, and also what are we going to do about all our friends who are booksellers? Because they were going to go out of business. I mean, we went on tours that had luncheons that sold books. So we started talking, and then I think it was Christy who said, let's put it on Facebook. And we said, no one's going to watch us talk about books. And they said, let's just try. So we did, and we put it on. We started out on Facebook Live on Mary Kay's Facebook page. And it just caught on. I don't think anybody else was doing it at the time. And after the summer, we talked about our books primarily. We started, so let's invite a few authors. So we kind of started big. Kristen Hanna was our first author. Can't get much bigger.
No.
Yeah, she's a friend of ours. And then I invited Delia. And, you know, Delia Owens wasn't giving a lot of Zooms at the time. And then I think Ellen Hildebrand. And the next thing you know, boom, 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 we were getting big authors, and we just started exploding.
And how many members do you have now?
We have about 40,000 members.
Wow.
And we have podcasts, and it just keeps growing, and we grow exponentially by the week. And I think it's the chemistry of the five friends, because we all know each other. I mean, my gosh, we're on the text all day long, talking about this, talking about that book, what we thought. And then by the time we talk to you, we are all geared up for that book, and it's fun.
Yeah, no,
I really do. I really do love it.
Yeah, and as a watcher, I really, really love it and love your interviews. Sometimes they're a bit harder to watch with the time zones, but the ones that the ones
so
I
what
can
is the time
watch.
zone?
So, well,
Jackie?
the time now here is 8:30 a.m.
A.M.
Yeah. So I'm on.
Well, good morning.
Saturday morning.
I'm going to finish this and have a glass of wine.
But yeah,
Good morning,
I
y'all.
have watched a lot of your interviews and really, really love them. And like I said, that's my motivation and my aspiration by looking at the ones
Oh,
you
well,
do.
thank you. That's a compliment.
Yeah.
Well, you've got 5,000 plus, so you're on the right
Yeah.
track.
Yeah. Could you tell us on average how long it takes you to write a book?
A year, and that's because of the deadline. I only have a year. The publisher wants me to write a book a year. I wrote 2 this year with The Islanders, my middle grade, and it's kind of burnt me out, to be honest. I was explaining how difficult this book was. I am going to take a couple years for my next novel, just because I need to get out. I miss wildlife. I have been trapped indoors. I work with wildlife, and I'm going to go out and explore and recharge my batteries and figure out what I want to say next.
And so apart,
I'm going to look at whales.
Yeah.
Whales.
Apart, like you said, your love for marine life, is there anything else you like doing to recharge your batteries and relax?
You know what? I got to figure that one out, Jackie. My dogs are my life. I mean, my dogs, my grandchildren. My children complain I'm a workaholic, and that's because I work all the time, but I honestly love what I do. So it's not like work, you know, when you love what you do. I garden. I love it when I get nervous or upset. I just put my gloves on and get out in the soil.
Yeah.
And I should exercise more.
So, are you working on something new at the moment, or you've taken a complete
I'm coming
break?
up with an idea. I'm in that wonderful place where I said after last year, I am going to take my time. And I'm doing something a little different. You know, I've written a couple of Beach House series books in a row because it just felt right. That's why. And the series has just gotten so popular, and I love the people. I hate to say goodbye to my characters, but I'm ready to write something a little different, and it's going to be out in the marshes of South Carolina.
Okay.
So the landscape will be not beach, but it will be southern. But I know while I write this book, I'm going off to study whales. And I think there's a whale book in the future.
Yeah.
But like I said, I will study the whales, and I'll be working with the whales. Hopefully,
Nice.
one of the things I want to do is take the nets, go out on boats to free the nets from the whales. I think that's something I really want to write about. And if I feel it in my heart, I know there's a book there about the people who do that. These ancient creatures have so much to tell us, and I just have to listen.
And do you have to travel far to see the whale, or do they come close to where you live?
They don't really come close enough here in South Carolina, so I'm going to Mexico, where they're just finishing calving. I know in December they're in Hawaii. But I think I really want to go to the coast of Canada, to Newfoundland, where I don't know why, but it's calling me. How about Australia?
Yeah.
What's the story on
we
whales?
have whales that travel, in Australia as well. So you'll have to come and see what they're like down here.
I'll add that to the list.
So thanks so much for chatting to us. Just
This was fun.
can you let people know how they can keep in touch with you?
Please, thank you. My Facebook page is very active, especially now. A lot of prizes for the new books. I love to give away gifts. So that's on Facebook at Mary Alice Monroe, the author page. And then my website, www.maryalicemonroe.com. And of course, on Friends in Fiction every Wednesday night. We have our website, friendsinfiction.com. We have podcast, and we have a YouTube like you do. So you can find me.
Yeah. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone who's joined in today. Been great. Thanks. Bye.
Jackie, thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Happy holiday. And good morning.